Hello everyone and welcome to Cinderful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the grey. Today's video, we're going to take a look at Idoneth Deepkin, and we're going to talk about 6 things that we'd like to see from Idoneth Deepkin in a brand new Battletome. Now, we have a feeling that a brand new Battletome is going to come out alongside that dual box set with Fyreslayers, and we will touch on Fyreslayers in a little while. But today, we're going to look at 6 things we'd like to see from that Battletome. And with this, we're going to be under the assumption that we are not going to see any new miniatures outside of the Thrallmaster. This is just a feeling that I don't think we are going to see any new miniatures. Every time we get one of these dual boxes, it ends up being the case. I think generally these, herald a brand new miniature and a brand new Battletome, and that's it for the army. So with that said, that is what we're going to take, I guess, a look at for the army. Now with that said, I think there's some really interesting things you can do with Idoneth Deepkin without the need for new models, so let's get cracking into it and let's check out 6 things we'd like to see for Idoneth Deepkin in a brand new Battletome. Number 1, the thing I think most of us would like to see in this new Battletome for Idoneth Deepkin is Thralls finally getting that 2-inch reach. Now, in a perfect world, I think it is just throw 2-inch on the War Scroll and be done, and I think the unit works perfectly fine. We can adjust points here or there, but I think with a 2-inch reach and the rule they have already where they do, more damage and more rend depending on how many wounds the opponent has that they're fighting, is a really interesting rule and can be really useful in the game. I think it's got a lot of play with just that rule, 2 attacks at 3s and 3s, rend 1, damage 1. There's some really interesting things that can be get there, and so that is the most basic and I think the simplest and I do think the best way to change Thralls. Now, there are 2 things we've got to talk about here, and the Thrallmaster is certainly something, because he has me thinking that they may add it in a different way, that they may add this ability to Thralls via the Thrallmaster. They mentioned that he makes Thralls fight in different sort of ways, he leads them in sort of fighting stances and all that, and with all his weaponries, that's sort of what I can see happening. So maybe one of his stances is giving 2-inch reach to the Thralls. However, that aside, whether or not the Thralls get 2-inch on base or that he gives them to them, I think it is a good thing. I would prefer them to get it on their base War Scroll, and then he gives them other abilities like, he can give them +1 rend, or he can give them +1 damage, or he can give them +1 attack, or can give them a ward save in combat, or something like that. It's very similar to like what the War Dancers used to be of old. You've also got the Ossiarch Bone Reapers unit. I forget the names of them. The ones with all the different faces that change their head around and do the different fighting poses. You got a lot of models that do it as well. So I definitely think this could be a really interesting combination of troops that we can have to the army. And I hope the Thrallmaster does make Thrall lists better, because I have a Morphan Enclave army and I am really looking forward to getting on the table with this. And moving from one Namadi unit to the other, we have Namadi Reavers. Now, I have a friend who's been running Namadi Reavers with some decent success as sort of a beta strike force where they sit behind and they unleash hell against units that charge some defensive Eels in front of them, and it works pretty well. However, I think a big change to Reavers for me that I would like to see happen is their rapid fire range increase. The unit doesn't pack out any range, it's all about weight of shots. There's no rend, they just damage 1. But they put out 3 shots when they have, I think it is 9-inch range. Now, this is obviously an issue because this stops them being able to deep strike and do this ability. And with no rend and all that on the weapons, I think it's okay for this unit to be able to deep strike and put down a decent amount of fire. Yes, it'll remove and maybe do some serious damage to more lightly armoured troops, but it does stop them being able to, alpha strike and take out some of the best units in the game. It's just a nice utility for them to have as being one of the units that's good to go along with your Soul Scryer other than Eels, as it doesn't have to put itself in harm's way. So you can bring things in, give them a rapid fire range of like 10 or 12 inches, and allow them to do that rapid fire when they move in. And speaking of the Thrallmaster again as well, I think he is interesting because will he affect Namadi Reavers? He's going to obviously be in charge of like using the Namadi, but will he be just tied to Thralls, or will he actually give some bonuses to the Reavers and potentially be able to put out rend and +1 damage and all that to them? If so, I really do think he's got a big place in the army if he's able to put some buffs on the Reavers as much as the Thralls. Number 3, proper priests and prayers. Now, we know the Isharan rituals that can be done by the army. I'd like to see these disappear and just give the Idoneth Deepkin proper priests and prayers. Give them an actual prayer law of their own. You can take what we were using and all those sort of rules that were in there with the rituals and sort of apply them to a single unit basis, you know, like maybe turn fly off of one unit rather than the whole army, and just make them prayers and priests. Pretty plain and simple here. There's definitely a lot you can do with this for the army. You can definitely turn other models into priests as well. I don't see a reason why the Soul Render can't be a priest on top as well. And of course, your Isharan characters just get that little bit more. Your Soul Scribe becomes a little bit more useful if he's actually got his own prayer law. Number 4, Endless Spells. Now, I know it's unlikely we are going to get a new box of Endless Spells, but if we are going to get any other box other than our new Thrall Master character, I think Endless Spells are maybe high on that list. It would be a cool addition to the Idoneth Deepkin. Now, whether or not that is our own Endless Spells, which I think for Idoneth Deepkin, they sort of write themselves, don't they? Have a giant school of piranha fish, a tidal wave, and maybe a swirling whirlpool. And you've pretty much got, you know, your Endless Spells pack there. And that tidal wave could be either a damage one or something like a giant wall of water, or whatever you want it to be. I think the Idoneth Deepkin Endless Spells write themselves. However, I do like what they have done with the Magikino Nurgle and giving the army a way to interact with the generic Endless Spells as well. And maybe this is something we could look into doing with the Idoneth Deepkin if they haven't already. So, potentially giving them a way to interact with the current Endless Spells. Maybe they get to move through the Aether Sea. Maybe Idoneth Deepkin can move all of them. So even the stationary ones, Idoneth Deepkin can move every turn a certain amount, and all Endless Spells that already move extras. The Idoneth Deepkin use the Aether Sea to move these Endless Spells. Could be a cool little mechanic, you know, being able to move a Prismatic Palisade across the table, or Soul Snare Shackles, or even move an Umbral Spell Portal for some spells through it as well. I think there's a lot of interesting things you could do with that as a rule. Every one of them gains an additional 3 or 6 inch movement. Gains 6 if it didn't move, and gains 3 more if it already did move, or something like that. Could be interesting for the army. Number 5, balance the Eels. Now, this has been a problem for Idoneth Deepkin. It's not that they've had other bad units, it's that the Eels have always been at that point that they're just so much better. Now, I don't know whether this is actually a case of nerfing Eels, bringing other War Scrolls up, because like I said at the beginning of the video, Thralls just need a 2-inch reach, and I really do think they become a good option. So, this doesn't necessarily need to be anything about the Eels in particular, but needs to be the army around it, and they need to create that internal balance for the army properly that they just haven't managed to get with Idoneth to this point. There's always a case for running something else, and running other things isn't bad with Idoneth. It's just that things like Eels are just nearly always the best option, and running anything else is almost always subpar. And so it's with this that I think a really big look needs to be looked on upon Eels and really balance the army around them. Make sure the points are right, make sure the rules are decent on all units so that they all have an option, and that way points can be adjusted to make units viable and less viable, so we can get that balance within the force and not have an army that is just Eels for days at all times only, or otherwise it's not a good army. And lastly, number 6, make sharks scary. Now, they have some cool rules on shark. I like the ability of the don't pile in with the net and all of that, but that's not what I want from shark. I want this thing to go into combat and absolutely murderize stuff. This should be a unit that is hyper aggressive. Don't give it a good armor save, allow it to do plenty of damage on the charge, and let it be a cool glass cannon. It's a shark. For me, living in Australia, great whites are the most fearsome creature in all of the ocean around here, and I would love to see these sort of represent those amazing killing monsters that are the sharks. I just feel sharks don't feel as scary as they should on the table to me. When I think shark, I think super deadly, super aggressive, and I just don't get that feeling with sharks on the tabletop. But that is 6 things I would like to see for Idoneth Deepkin. I'd love to hear everyone else's thoughts on what you would love to see from the new book. And look, add new models if you wish, but just be aware it's unlikely we're probably going to see them, hence why I've tried to stay away from mentioning them in the video. With that though, let us know in the comments below what you want to see, what you don't want to see, what things you want to see changed, and all of that for your Idoneth Deepkin. Love to hear from everyone in the comments below. Well, that's the end of the video. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed it, please leave a comment below and let us know what you enjoyed about the video. And don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel and turn those bell notifications on so you don't miss a beat when we upload new stuff to the channel. Lastly, if you'd like to help support the channel in another way, you can do so either by helping support the channel on Patreon or YouTube members. This allows us to continue to make new content for the channel, exploring other game systems outside of Warhammer Age of Sigmar, like we have started to with things like Elder Scrolls: A Call to Arms and Conquest: The Last Argument of Kings and Warhammer 40,000, and it helps us just continue to make more Age of Sigmar content as well. Thank you to, though, everyone who has helped support, and we'd like to give them all a shout out to our patrons. First of all, Christian Weir, James Soren, Greenskins Gaming, AJC, Kenny Lowe, Outer and Shop First, Andrew Bowen, Nathan Fee, The Rising Ape, Cure Dynamic, Agu, Anthony B, Anton Nilsson, JJ Austrian, Average Wargamer, Domir, Mark Harvey, James Cater, and Samuel. And to our YouTube members as well, Green Roots Gaming, Kenton Young, Chris Wallace, Ronya, Vinny Lockloric, The Johnny84, David Ellsworth, Revenar, Wolfric Nick, Broken Chef, Sean Scott, and Diplomat. And a special thank you, of course, to, first of all, Lady Witchfox Art, who does all the amazing artwork for the channel you see here, and to Xmorphic, who does all the awesome background work on our Discord server, keeping that nice and running properly for us all. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Once again, stay safe, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against Grey. Ciao for now.